during the events anticipated today. Even as we take a look at the dailies, of course, a lot of talk on social media with regard to President William Ruto's tweet about one media house. And that is what everyone is talking about, especially on X. Why did the president have to express himself on social media? But, well, he's not the first president to do so. Donald Trump does this every day. He actually had to open his own social media, Truth Social, to be able to do the same. Anyway, let's come back and take a look at the local dailies. And we start off with a standard that has dedicated both the front and back page to the heroes. They call them our heroes. 65 people killed by the police. And what it has done is it has put quite a number of the photos of those who perished in that fateful June 25th, 2024 date, where most of these people lost their lives. And now we're marking the second anniversary of the Gen Z protest, because that is what they were dubbed. They had been dubbed Gen Z protest. So both on the front page, the very first picture is there of Rex Masai. Allow me to read just a number of their names. Evans Karobi, Erickson Mutisia, Anthony Kimeu, Kevin Mwawasi, Ibrahim Kamau, Kennedy Wakini, Kelvin Madaga, David Shege, Ernest Kanyi, Shakilo Bienge, Beasley Kogi, Credo Yaro, Fantalio Nakara, Joash Ombati, Dennis Otieno, Francis Sawe, Austin Makoha, Erickson Mutisia, I think I've read that already, Kennedy Onyango, and Charles Owino. That's on the front page. If you flip the paper, more names and pictures there. Under the headline, Rest in Peace. Ryan Mwendwa, Mike Brian Kasaine, Duncan Osongo, Brian Kimutai, Peter Njenga, Anthony Karaoke, Ibrahim Wanjiko, Emmanuel Tata, Michael Kihoga, Peter Mogo, Paul Mboro, Jeremiah Oscar, Paul Makori, Edwin Dambiri, Victor Otieno, Dennis Njuguna, Bridget Njoki, Braxton Omae, Brian Kimathi, Brian Maina, Kelvin Madanga, Emmanuel Giggs Tata, Erickson Mutisia. I think some of them have been repeated, but nonetheless, Caroline Shiramba, David Shaban Baraza, Evans Kirato, Eric Shieni, Denzel Omondi, and Dennis Oduor. These are just some of those who lost their lives on June 25th, 2024. And the Standard has dedicated both the front page and the back page in their remembrance. Rest in peace. They marched with phones, flags, and the Constitution. 2 years later, their names echo louder than the tear gas and gunfire that tried to silence them. We honor a generation that paid in blood for its demand for a better Kenya. This story has been covered extensively on pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That's how much space has been given to this story. We've just been seeing the World Cup on the back page. This time around, no. It will take a pause. It will have to take a pause as we focus on the main agenda of this day, which is the second anniversary of this. Rest in peace. And we do hope they did not lose their lives for nothing. The only other piece of news that has been given space on the front page of the Standard is an editorial responding to the president. And under the headline, Mr. President, the Standard will not bow to blackmail. So it starts, and I'll just read the first paragraph. The Standard Group PLC finds it impossible to ignore the post published by President William Ruto on X, in which he directly referenced to the group. Yes, you can go on Twitter and look at that post by President William Ruto targeting this particular media house and the reaction by Kenyans on the same. So let's take a look at the inside pages of the Standard to just see what people are talking about. The first headline, Murkomen contradicts police on demos, traders appeal for peace. Yes, while police insist they do not have any notification of any protest or march in Nairobi, the CS says police were notified and that those who are doing the march should just remain peaceful. Too little, too late, say parents of youth killed in 2024 protests. They say it is too late. Even the compensation given to them is not enough. Rights activists face crackdown ahead of anniversary events is another story. Flags, flowers to mark Gen Z protest day events. Organizers say citizens will gather at locations where demonstrators were killed. Participants have been asked to carry a flower, a white handkerchief, and the national flag. That's from the organizers of the Gen Z anniversary. Tortured but unbroken abductees recall ordeal. Remember that abductees from these two incidents are part of those who are to be compensated. I think they said those who underwent enforced disappearance, which mainly means abduction, will be compensated as well. Gen Z martyrs who marched for change paid with dear lives. That's another headline inside Pages. Plight of hundreds of Gen Z protesters languishing in jail. And this is something that is rarely talked about, that there's still people. Prison officers have confirmed that over 200 youth are still in custody over what suspects called trumped-up charges, some going as far back as 2024. Meanwhile, the state has started payout for victims of protest-related rights violations, despite the fact that the list is yet to be made public. Page 6, face the truth, Ruto under fire for accusing Standard of blackmail. That's a different story there. Victims keen and survivors to lead vigil in Kisumu. I remember one of my panelists yesterday insisted there will be nothing in Kisumu. Meanwhile, Oburu, that's the ODM party leader, urges police to protect peaceful demonstrators. How DIG Lagat became face of Gen Z crackdown. These are just the main headlines. And I think that's the only story. Yes, those are the only stories on the dailies today. As far as the Standard is concerned, no other story given prominence. More than 7 pages, actually 9 pages dedicated to that. News about the World Cup is on the back page. Allow me just to give you some of the games to be played. Today, Curacao will be facing Cote d'Ivoire. Ecuador face Germany, both games at 11 p.m. Tomorrow, more games, Japan versus Sweden at 2 a.m. Tunisia versus Netherlands, 2 a.m. as well. Paraguay versus Australia at 5 a.m. Turkey versus USA at 5 a.m. And later in the evening, Norway to face France and Senegal to face Iraq. And that's the Standard this morning. Tukiangazia gazeti la Taifa Leo, jinamizi la Gen Z ndio habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Maafisa serikalini wakosa usingizi licha polisi kutumia nguvu kupita kiasi kuwadhibiti Gen Z. Miaka miwili baada ya maandamano makubwa ya vijana wa Gen Z yaliyotikisa nchi na kulazimisha serikali kuondoa mswada wa fedha wa mwaka 2024, athari zake bado zinaonekana wazi kusumbua serikali, hasa katika sera za ushuru, uchumi na siasa za kitaifa. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Waziri wa usalama ananukuliwa pale, amesema waandamanaji wafanye hivyo kwa amani. Ametumia picha ya mwaka wa 2025 hapa, vijana wakichoma moto barabarani na kuweka vizuizi kwenye barabara inayoelekea uwanja wa Kamukunji. Ilikuwa ni Julai tarehe 7 mwaka jana, wakati wa maadhimisho ya maandamano ya Gen Z. Kwa hivyo pia hapa habari kuu ni maandamano ya Gen Z na ukumbusho wa yaliyotokea mwaka jana na mwaka wa 2024. Vidokezo zaidi, kando na masuala ya maandamano, DCI kumulika wanaochoma shule zao. Pesa nyingi za kaunti 9 ni mshahara. Na Rais Lungu yule wa Zambia kuzikwa Afrika Kusini. Koti ya Afrika Kusini yasema familia ya Lungu ndiyo iliyo na haki kuamua mahali atakapozikwa. Ni malumbano tu kuhusu aliyekuwa wakati mmoja rais wa Zambia, Edward Lungu, baina ya familia yake na serikali ya Zambia, ambayo ilitaka mazishi yake yatendeke nyumbani Zambia, lakini familia imesema hapana, wanataka azikwe alipokufia kule Afrika Kusini. Pale juu kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo, kurasa wa mbele, IEBC afichua mipango ya uchaguzi mkuu mwaka ujao. Maafisa wa umma wanaonuia kuwania vyeo uchaguzi mkuu sasa wamesalia na chini ya siku 230 kujiuzulu kulingana na IEBC. Masuala ya World Cup, kombe la dunia, hesabu ngumu za DRC na Ghana. bado zina nafasi kufuzu raundi ya 32 licha ya matokeo mseto mechi za awali. Gazeti la Taifa Leo. Tukisonga mbele, tunaangazia gazeti la Daily Nation. Habari ni ile ile. June 25th, 2024, the day that changed Kenya. And an image of the protesters there, young protesters with flags, masks, face masks, water bottles, and what else? Just that. No weapons anywhere. These were protesters along Kenyatta Avenue in Nairobi during the anti-finance bill demonstrations on June 25th, 2024. Some of them, probably even in this picture on the front page of the Daily Nation, are no more. Some of them could be behind bars. Some of them may have gotten injuries from that day. So on this second anniversary, anti-tax protesters stormed Parliament, forcing the state to shelve the draconian finance bill and dissolve Parliament, cabinet rather. Demos, at least 50 people were injured and dozens were killed. 50 people were killed and dozens injured, most of them by police gunfire in the aftermath of the Gen Z protests that shut down the country. 2 years after the uprising, survivors still live with pain and trauma, but the state has unveiled a payout for families of those killed or maimed during the riots. Meanwhile, Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen says peaceful and unarmed protesters will be protected by police, but warns goons plotting chaos will be punished. So who is saying what and who's saying the truth? If the CS says police were already informed or notified and that they should be protecting the protesters, then police come out and say, no, they have not been notified and therefore there should not be any protests in the city. So who's telling the truth? Away from that story, which is covered on pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and we'll be coming back to that. IEBC unveils roadmap to 2027 elections, and there's a fresh storm over Chinese farms, 154 billion shillings JKIA contract, which was signed yesterday. Yes, these are the stories on the front page. We'll be getting another update shortly from the streets of Nairobi and elsewhere with regard to what's happening there. But we continue looking at the headlines linked to the Gen Z protests as I wait for indication of whether that update is ready. All right, even as we continue looking at the Daily Nation, we still have pictures from our roads. Let's take a look at the situation on Thika Road. Yes, live pictures there along Thika Road. Yes, that area around the Garden City Mall and Roasters. You can see, yes, it's already 18 minutes past 6. Usually traffic is heavy at this time of day around these areas. Matatu operators had indicated that despite the fact that they anticipate some disruption of normal operations in the city, that their vehicles will still be available to ferry people who are still willing to go into the CBD. But the reality on the ground is that not many matatus are on the road this morning. You can see the few people who are trying to move from one area to another are on foot, are doing so on foot. I'm trying to identify where exactly that is because, right, I'm informed that that's the area around Garden City Mall. Very little traffic in comparison to normal days. This is the route heading towards the city center. Remember, other sections of other roads have been have roadblocks erected by police officers who are checking vehicles and other pedestrians who are walking towards the direction of the city center. Those going outside of Nairobi are not experiencing the same. I think police are more concerned about those going into the CBD and whether or not unwanted people. There's been a lot of talk about goons and them infiltrating the protest march or the remembrance march, and police have been keen to ensure that this does not happen. Whether or not they'll be successful, we'll get to know. Motorists and yes, quite a number of motorists you can see they're using the wrong side of the road, the service lane, on the wrong, moving in the wrong direction, in the opposite direction, which is meaning that definitely traffic is not normal. right. One of the roadblocks erected by police, this is the one at the Roysambu Kasarani roundabout, and it would appear that traffic is not able to move into the direction of the CBD through that area. And many vehicles are forced to go around the roundabout and use other directions. Probably the reason why a number of motorists are using the wrong side of the road, especially on the service lane next to Safari Park heading towards the CBD. So our vehicle has been forced to go further down Kasarani, now heading towards Githurai. Just to check out the situation, we'll be trying to see if we can head back towards the city, probably using the elevated section of that interchange to see if at all there are roadblocks above there. Because if at all the police insisted it will be business as usual in the CBD, then why block people from getting there to open their jobs and businesses on this day? It would appear some people declared it a holiday, some politicians asked people to stay at home, but senior officers of this administration insisted it will be a normal day. Shops and businesses will be opened, offices will be opened as well. And so we don't understand why sections of the road have been closed to traffic, that police are reducing the number of people heading towards town. All right, we'll be getting more updates from our roads as we continue with this news review. I'm just looking at some of the headlines linked to the Gen Z protests. The day that changed Kenya forever, that's just one headline, and a very disturbing picture there of protesters carrying an injured demonstrator after clashes with police on Kenyatta Avenue in Nairobi. More headlines still on Daily Nation. Murkomen vows crackdown on leaders mobilizing protest goons. How protests derailed Ruto's ambition to raise tax burden. Traders still reeling from 2024 chaos, taking precautions. And victims leave with physical and emotional scars. Yeah. Then some of the names that were really talked about during the protests in 2024, they have a headline here on page 7. After the Gen Z revolt, where are they now? And that's the question being asked. And the faces on page 7 include Bernard Kavuli, Hanifa Aidan, who was, I think, came into prominence during the protests, Odhiambo Ojiro, Gabriel Oguda. Okay, Gabriel is now part of the broad-based arrangement. I think he works in Parliament under one of the CSs. Joshua Okayo, Shakira Wafula, Alan Ademba, and Willie Oeba, as well as Billy Mwangi. These was just some of the names that became prominent in and around that time. They were too young, too fresh, and inexperienced to know what to do with the power they held on June 25th. That's, they're quoting one, Shakira Wafula, says they were too young, too fresh, and inexperienced to know what to do with the power they held on June 25th. All right, our camera is right now at Githurai. Let's take a look at what's happening there. Live pictures there, that roundabout in Githurai. We're just going round the roundabout that goes towards Githurai and Mwehoko. A lot of border riders there, but I'm struggling to see any matatus. Usually this place is full of matatus in the morning as we ferry people towards the CBD. Most of them appear packed, but you can see the police presence there. Heavy police presence in this area as well. It's only matatu, boda guys who are moving around. I'm yet to see a single matatu heading towards the direction of the city. Once again, I think even that section of the road has been blocked to traffic, meaning that anyone using the service lane along Githurai is not able to proceed towards the CBD, and you're forced to turn around and head towards KU. Yes, one of the officers there giving instructions to one of the motorists who's insisting he needs to proceed on to Thika Highway. I think he's been allowed to do so. But where are the matatus? I remember matatu operators insisting that their vehicles will be available to ferry people into the city center. But it would appear that's not the case this morning. So yes, police, roadblocks, blocking the flow of traffic towards town, towards the central business district. And this means that in the CBD, it must be a ghost town this morning. We're hoping to get one of our cameras there and crew to give us an update of what's happening in and around the streets and avenues of the central business district. But as far as Githurai is concerned, even boda riders are having it difficult to head towards the city center, and motorists are being diverted towards a different direction. Probably they're being told to go back home. How pity hapa. Yeah, that's the situation at Githurai, similar to what we've seen at the Roysambu Kasarani roundabout as well. We have reports that areas along Kiambu Road, all the way from Dumberi, Kiambu Town, areas around Paradise Lost, and even next to the Muthaiga North junction with Kiambu Road, the roadblocks set up by police, blocking movement towards the city center and diverting motorists to other directions as well. So you can see quite a number of motorists stranded here, because if you want to go to town and you're being forced to go back, I don't know how you'll proceed there. Probably using the bypasses. We still are yet to establish whether or not police have set up roadblocks there. You can see, yeah, no vehicle passing there. And quite a number of people probably who are hoping to go to town, not able to do so. The small matatus you've seen there are the ones that actually operate in areas around Ruiru, not heading towards the city center. So our vehicle being forced to turn around as well and now head further away from the city center towards Kahawa, Sukari and KU towards Ruiru. The next turning spot should be at Kahawa. In a few moments we'll be able to see whether or not that roundabout has been blocked by police as well. It would appear the police have instructions not to allow people to move along Thika Road towards the city center. Why this is happening, we still do not know, because the indication by the top ranking officers of this administration was that it will be a normal day for those heading to work, for businesses to reopen or to open this morning. But you can see even traffic heading away from town is not that heavy as well. So we'll be getting more updates on Thika Road, which at, what time is it? At 2 minutes to 6:30, the traffic situation is definitely not normal. And we are hoping that our vehicle will be able to be allowed to come back this way, because we need our reporters to be closer to the city center. What we've seen so far is that vehicles along Thika Road are not being allowed to come back towards the city center. Quite a number of police roadblocks set up there, and we'll be getting details, more updates from that road, as well as other major highways. How is Mombasa Road looking, Wayaki Way, Ngong Road, as well as Jogoo Road heading towards town? Also the Eastern Bypass, which is usually busy every morning. We'll be getting updates from there, and as well as the situation within the CBD, where the Remembrance March is expected to take off. I saw one post which indicated that they would be meeting at Jivanji Gardens and other areas, then proceed slowly on their march towards Parliament Building using parts of Kenyatta Highway, Kenyatta Avenue and Moi Avenue, as well as Harambee Avenue, as they head towards Parliament to lay flowers outside there. Remember, quite a number of those people who lost their lives did so after the Parliament precincts were breached and there was shooting. Massive shooting by security officers, and many people lost their lives there. We continue looking at the dailies, and I'm still on the Daily Nation, just looking at some of the headlines still linked to this coverage, and I think we've gone through them, quite a number of them. The only other story is about the IEBC unveiling 2027 roadmap for the election, and that's it. So it's all about the Gen Z protests of 2024. Back page, the Daily Nation has stuck to the World Cup. Will 2026 be the final World Cup for Messi and Ronaldo? It should be, probably because of age, but I do not know. Yes, plus an indication of how many games to be played today and what to anticipate. Let me just mention again, in as far as African teams are concerned, both South Africa will be playing on Thursday, and Curacao versus Cote d'Ivoire. All right, yes, the next roundabout we were to check was at Kahawa Sukari. And just like we've seen at Kasarani and at Githurai, also high police presence. These are just police vehicles everywhere, some even blocking our cameras. I think there's more police presence than people trying to go to work today. Police vehicles are all over. And you can see, gun on one hand and a fimbo on the other to point to which direction you should be going to. I think the only people who are being allowed movement there are border riders. Most private motorists have not been able to go to wherever they wanted to, and it's only police vehicle that enjoys this kind of movement. Let's see if at all our driver will be able to, our vehicle will be able to get its way back into the CBD, because I feel now he's maneuvered his way back to the direction heading towards town. And already there, you can see some being blocked by the police vehicle there. Okay, he's managed to maneuver that. Let's see if at all he'll be able to go and past Githurai, which is a few kilometers from here, probably using the main highway and not the service lane, because the service lane has been blocked by police. We are yet to see any roadblock on the main Thika superhighway, but at least the service lanes heading towards town have been blocked and motorists are being diverted elsewhere. Some have already started using the service lane on the opposite side of the highway, the wrong side. I do not know how far they will go with that. Yes, police presence even on the main Thika superhighway, but at least our driver has been able to maneuver through that. Still heading towards the CBD. Eventually we'll be getting more updates from there. We continue looking at the dailies this morning. And now I'm on the Star, which is fresh, independent and different, but not very different today because they've also paid attention to this remembrance. The main headline talks about State House race begins as IBC blows 2027 whistle. Agency announcing general election to be held on August 10th. Things that we already know, nothing new there. But at least they've also published pictures of some of the victims of police brutality. Once again, Rex Masai, the most prominent of them all, his image there, and others whose names I've mentioned, especially when I was looking at the front and back pages of the Standard today. They buried their children, but not their pain. That story is on page 2. Austin Makoha, Emmanuel Giggs, Wilson Sitati, Anthony Masharia, Erickson Chalo, Kennedy Onyango, Kenneth Njeru, Michael Kihuga, David Shege, Kevin Odhiambo, Brian Kasaine, Caroline Shiramba, Beasley Kogi, and yes, Rex Masai. This is indeed their day. That's why I keep repeating their names. They're the people we're remembering today. That's why we're having a protest march in Nairobi and elsewhere in the country in remembrance of those people who lost their lives. Another story on the front page here, governors avoid pending bills accrued by their predecessors. On the inside pages, Gen Z families, they buried their kids but not their pain. That's a story on page 2. Page 3, we have this guarantee by Matatus that they will operate during protests. Matatu operators have assured Kenyans that public transport services will continue uninterrupted as the country marks the second anniversary of the 2024 Gen Z protests with memorial marches. Hapo ni kama walitudanganya, because you've just seen live pictures from most of the roads and matatus are nowhere to be seen. Yeah. So that assurance ni kama hawakuweza to live up to it. IBC has been given prominence because the Stars only continued the protest stories on page 2 and 3. After that, it's IBC, which is the main spread on pages 4 and 5. Moving on from there, and it's other stories. Governors avoid pending bills from predecessors. Nyakango sounds alarm as governors drag feet on MC Autonomy Fund. Okay, fine. One more headline in the inside pages, page 7. Gen Z protest day showdown looms. And that's it. More headlines on other stories away from protests. And this one, police saying, what the Star has done is that it's mixed these headlines with regard to today's events with other news. So on page 9, they have the story about the police saying that they've not received notice of planned protests. The Nairobi Regional Police Commander Issa Mohamud addressed the media yesterday at DCI training school and said they were not aware of that. We continue just monitoring the movement of our vehicle capturing the events along Thika Road, and just a few moments ago you saw that we had encountered another police roadblock but managed to go through it, probably after identifying ourselves as media covering the events. But you can see with this kind of roadblocks, no vehicles will be able to get into the CBD. Even matatus will definitely not be allowed into the city center. Most vehicles on Thika Road are the ones heading away from the CBD, which remains open to traffic. Just been able to get past Kasarani, where vehicles are heading towards Kasarani and Mwiki and not towards the CBD. Very few vehicles even trying to get to the city center. Most of them, I think, have been diverted, and most have decided, wacha warudi nyumbani, because you cannot force your way into the city center. If this is a situation, 20 minutes to 7, and Thika Superhighway looks like it's just been washed squeaky clean. Very few vehicles there. Even motorbike riders, the number keeps decreasing as you get away from the residential estates and as you get closer towards the CBD. Very little traffic, actually almost none, heading towards the central business district. All right, back to the papers, and we'll be bringing you more of these pictures and updating you as soon as we get an update or clarity. All right, superhighway. Away from that superhighway, another story, Kenyans opt for Kadogo shopping as living cost reshapes spending. The Star is definitely different. Not much talk about what's happening today, and that's it. Back in the groove, that's the back page of the Star, talking about Cristiano Ronaldo playing for Portugal and is shown there celebrating after scoring against Uzbekistan. Another story here, Yamal causes chaos for our rivals, reveals Oyarzabal. There's a Spain striker, Mikel, complaining about, not complaining, actually talking about how Yamal, his teammate, is causing trouble for their rivals. That's the Star. Matters World Cup still giving prominence. A bit of coverage on what's happening today in Nairobi, but not much to talk about. Our vehicle continues moving towards the CBD, just about to get to Allsops, where we have that interchange between Outer Ring Road and Thika Road, and the situation is still the same. Very few vehicles on the highway. You can see on the service lane a bit of traffic, I guess, caused by another roadblock. Oh, and here you can see even the main highway, the main superhighway has been blocked for traffic. Motorists are unable to go past this point. It would be nice to see what exactly is happening just a few meters ahead, but it would appear not much movement is happening. Let me just confirm on our maps if at all there's any movement in as far as traffic is concerned from that area. And I can tell you for sure, not much traffic after this area, after this section of the road. It looks like it's been blocked. That must be a police roadblock there. Yes, and even Google Maps indicates that there's a blocked, that section of the road has been blocked to traffic, and after that, no traffic. If you get to the Pangani interchange today, the usual trouble spot, when you check traffic every morning, there's no traffic, meaning that motorists and boda riders as well, because I can see them here, are not being allowed to move further along this road towards the city center. Most of the motorists have come out of their vehicles trying to find out if at all they can get to town. to try and open their businesses or go to offices na waendelee kujenga nchi. Lakini kama wameambiwa leo nchi haitajengwa sana. I can't see any police presence here. Where that roadblock is located, we're still not sure, but definitely there's a problem. Oh yes, I can see one officer, at least one officer there, meaning that this is a police roadblock on Thika Road just before you get to that interchange with at Allsops, the interchange with Outer Ring Road, meaning many motorists cannot go beyond this section of Thika Superhighway towards the city center. It's also nice to note that, or curious to note that matatus are not part of this motorist here. It is mostly private motorists, but it looks like some of them are being allowed to proceed. All right, they've been allowed to proceed towards town. So things are very fluid. Things are changing by the minute, by the second. One point, these motorists were not being allowed to go beyond the space. Now it would appear some of them have been allowed to proceed on. Yes, indeed, it is a police roadblock, but a number of motorists have been told that they can proceed on, probably after checks. And that is what is happening, especially on the roadblocks on Kiambu Road, that motorists are being stopped and the police doing a quick check inside the vehicles just to see the kind of passengers being carried or ferried towards town. And once they establish that you're genuinely heading towards a CBD for genuine business, then they allow you to proceed on. Okay, our vehicle appears to have maneuvered through that latest roadblock along Thika Superhighway, now getting past Allsops area, heading towards the CBD, where they'll be giving us an update. We're hoping there's no other roadblock there, because the crew is heading towards the city center for an update on what exactly is happening there, as we anticipate this memorial march towards Parliament, which will be happening later this morning. The situation in and around the city remains fluid. We do not know if more people will be allowed in, but we'll be getting a real update from our reporters. Let's finish up with a newspaper review this morning. I've taken a look at the papers there, and I'm looking for People Daily, because it also talks about, yes, People Daily on the screen. Thank you for that. People Daily, tension builds as nation braces for Gen Z protests, and they've used a picture there of one of the protesters cornered by police. He's shirtless. This one is from as far back as June 25th, 2024. The other story is about the Olkalau by-elections, which will be coming on, will be held on 16th of July. So the rivals in Olkalau by-election make a Goliath versus David battle, and that's the People Daily. Finally, Business Daily. It talks about China's CRBC contracts cross 1.2 trillion on lucrative deals. JKIA modernization contract extends firm's big win. Look East policy opens door for the Asian nation. And also Family Bank in 231 million shilling payout to founder Muya. And this gentleman is one of a kind. He was taking photos with the other CEOs of Family Bank. He's a founder of the Family Bank. And while everyone else was dressed in a suit, he had jeans, sneakers, a sweater and tie. And a very interesting character there. On the ticker, banks win as VAT on seized assets removed. High Court rejects a bid to ban Johnson & Johnson. And finally, investment banks pivot to unit trusts in fees hand. Quickly, we cross over to Uganda. And the president there, President Museveni, wishing his wife a happy birthday. Janet Museveni is turning 78 rather. That's a Daily Monitor. On the New Vision, peace target top opposition office reform. So matters politics and the presidency. Meanwhile, in Tanzania, the Citizen, tax relief as finance bill undergoes amendment. Yes, in Tanzania, they're talking about the finance bill as well. Meanwhile, Mwananchi, habari ni ile ile, sheria ya fedha ya umma ya achia. That's a finance bill in both papers in Tanzania. So let's come back and take a look at the local cartoons in the local daily. The one on the